Well, I'm going to go ahead and get going. So I just want to say good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this today's webinar. Our focus today is actually quite simple. What we want to do is we want to share what we've learned about EV charging in a straightforward way for contractors and installers. And our primary objective is just to really shape your understanding of how to build a more profitable and successful business and ensure happy customers. At Evoke, we manage thousands of chargers across hundreds of sites nationwide, and we've seen firsthand what works in the real world and what creates the biggest pain points, from driver frustration to unnecessary truck rolls just to get chargers onboarded or kept in good working order. Today is about sharing those lessons and showing how the right combination of software, hardware, and field practices delivers cost-effective, reliable onboarding and commissioning and increases uptime without unnecessary truck rolls. So in terms of today's agenda, we're really going to cover, we have 5 items. First, I'm just going to give you a quick oversight in terms of who Evoke is. And then I'm going to really drill into the lessons that we've learned, the key lessons that we've learned in regards to driving profitability for installers and contractors. I do want to discuss our partnership that we're developing with Fractal, where we recognize that they have a very unique approach to driving down cost and really increasing customer satisfaction by simplifying provisioning. And then I'm going to turn over to Rodney Miles, who's one of our resellers, to talk. So Rodney will talk about his experience about a real-world case study with CIG Communities and how to deliver high uptime deployments. And of course, then what we'll do is we'll open it up for questions and answers. So who's Evoke? Well, we're a software-only charge station management provider, or CSMS provider. We manage thousands of chargers at hundreds of sites worldwide, and we work with a really wide variety of level 2 and DC fast charging hardware. And because we work with a large variety of DC hardware, what we've done is we've seen what I would call the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've seen certainly variations in firmware quality and reliability. We've seen differences in hardware quality. The kind of information that we could get back from a charger sometimes is very sparse. We've seen various kinds of installation practices. Do I need to apply labels or not apply labels? Do I need to pull off the cover if I want to reconfigure the charger and plug in a PC? And then we've seen the practical limitations in terms of site, in terms of backhaul communications. So this broad exposure has given us really a unique, clear picture of what actually drives success in the EV charging space across equipment types, across installers, and also across resellers and site conditions. And so the real question is, well, what have we learned? What we've really learned is that the success in EV charging comes down to 2 very simple things. The installation has to be effortless, and there really needs to be a validation that the equipment is working as expected. And then what do you need to do for consistently high uptimes? And so if either one of these 2 things break down in terms of visibility, the drivers become frustrated, operators lose out on revenue, customers become dissatisfied. And as I said, just implied a couple of minutes ago, not all chargers and not all installers are created equal. Sometimes there's a very difference in the kind of skill level that you can get for a specific site or installation. Sometimes the complexity or the uniqueness of commissioning this charger versus that charger creates complexity and oftentimes a missed opportunity to ensure that the charger is onboarded properly and commissioned effortlessly. And that's why the ecosystem matters. So we've been very focused on simplifying onboarding, ensuring visibility, maintaining end-to-end traceability across every site, and most importantly, providing bulletproof backhaul communication that keeps chargers online, that ensures that we get the proper reporting, which is oftentimes certainly necessary for third-party agencies, whether those be state agencies or utilities, and really ensuring that we could provide the serviceability without having the unnecessary requirement to roll a truck when all that needs to be done is that a charger breaker needs to be tripped to bring it back online. So to reduce site visits and increase uptime, you really need to start out with hardware that is purpose-built for operational simplicity and supports leading-edge backhaul. and to keep so that you can ensure that the devices stay connected, and if there's a problem with connection, that you could easily recover from that, and you actually know what's going on with the charger. That's why it's actually Rodney that introduced me to Fractal EV, and we're very excited to work with Fractal. Their approach to firmware, the connectivity that they provide, the remote provisioning that they provide is really world class, and the commitment to cybersecurity, which is becoming increasingly important in today's environment, is very, very clear. And so to share deeper insights into why the Fractal approach and how it changes the operational experience for property owners and installers, I'm very delighted to introduce Chris Mendez. Chris is the CEO and founder of Fractal EV. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Raymond. Nice to meet you, everyone. So Fractal EV is a fairly new company on the scene, although our core team has been doing EV charging or EV-related products for many, many years. And it really comes from real-world experience of operating chargers in the field. Next slide, please. So our key insight when we built our products was around, the major challenge in EV charger is really about reliability, and because that's really what drives the cost. And the reason that is true is because site visits, when you look at the cost of executing a site visit to fix a charger, it's extremely high compared to the cost of the software or the hardware itself. And the question is, how do we reduce those? And so I spent about a year maintaining a few thousand chargers. And my observations were most of the issues that we see in the field are networking related, not electrical related. And so most of those issues we can solve remotely. And so we build commercial charge stations, only commercial charge stations. We don't build charge stations for houses, single family homes. We build them for every other avenue. So whether that's fleet or retail or MERB applications. We have a 48 amp version or an 80 amp version. They both look almost identical. You can see a photo of them in the picture there. And we build them in Canada. And that allows us to cross the border tariff-free. And it also allows us to control every element of the cybersecurity that goes into that product. So there's there's two kind of key ways that we drive down the site visit occurrence levels. And they really go to, one, the things that are unique to us is like, one, we offer for free what we call an O&M cloud portal. And so what that means is that when you buy a charger from us, you automatically get an account to our cloud product. There's no cost for that product, just comes free with the charger. And as soon as that charger comes online, it's going to connect to that cloud and you'll have an account there. You'll see those chargers and you're going to see that for the life of the charger, and you'll be able to manage all the settings and understand what's happening inside that charger. So that's like there to support with diagnostics and troubleshooting over the lifetime. And the second thing that we've done is we've built in redundant communication pathways into this charger. So most chargers, they will communicate on a single pathway, either Wi-Fi or on a cellular connection. We not only have those, but we also include a SIM card in the charger that allows us to remotely activate it for a fairly low cost. And we can receive information from the charger, obviously, in that case, in case there's an issue with the Wi-Fi. And then the second thing we have is every single charger that we build comes with a built-in mesh network. And if you take two Fractal EV chargers out of the boxes and you power them up next to each other, they'll immediately start communicating and talking to each other. And that will allow us to reach chargers that are powered up but have no internet connection whatsoever. Next slide, please. So the way we do this is pretty straightforward. The charger always has these two connections. So it has this proprietary connection back to Fractal Cloud, which is our cloud offering. And then it has its OSPP connection, which can connect to one of many network, any of the networks that are out there. But Evoke is a great partner of ours, and it's very easy to connect it to Evoke and get it up and operational. So what do you use Fractal Cloud for? You use it for setup and recovery operations in case there's an issue during the commissioning process, or if something goes wrong halfway through, somebody changes Wi-Fi credentials, something like that on site. For reporting, some basic reporting, is the thing working or not working, and then setting all the other various settings that you would normally have to do on site, either with the computer or via the screen. So it's a pretty straightforward model, but that process of automated configuring through the back end rather than through the charger itself is really key. So the question is, our whole value proposition, of course, is that we reduce site visits, and we have lots of data to back this up, that we really do reduce it. But the easiest way to understand it is that our communications to electricians now, since we have many customers that buy chargers from us and then install it with third-party electricians across the country, is the message to the electrician can be as simple as just power it up. Because inside that charger, inside every single one of those chargers, there's a SIM card, and that SIM card can be activated from our website. And so if the electrician does nothing more than put power on it, they can walk away. You can remotely activate that charger and get it connected and push every single setting you need to push to that charger. You can do it that way. So that's the primary way that you can do it. The other thing too is that if these chargers are designed to go on Wi-Fi, then the next most complicated thing you need to tell the electrician is put the charger on Wi-Fi through the touchscreen, and that's no more complicated than the same thing they would do with their cell phone. It's they're going to type in the SSID and they're going to type in the password. So there's other things that we offer as well that really help you remotely fix them, and I'm going to highlight two of those things now. On the left, you can see a little screenshot out of our portal, which is a charger that we have here in our office that was not connected to internet at all, but we have lots of chargers in our office that are connected to the internet. And so when you take a charger out of a box and you power it up, it'll show up on our mesh network, and that allows you to route commands down to that charger. It also allows you to receive information from the charger so you understand what the state is. But here's a good example of just being able to reboot a charger that's on mesh network. Maybe it can't get access to the Wi-Fi for some reason, and you just want to reboot it. And so that's a simple way you can do it. It's all automatic. It'll just show up there. You can hit the reboot command, and you can get that charger rebooted. And on the right-hand side, there's a very, very common experience that most people have with chargers, which is that when chargers stop talking to the OSPP network, there is zero indication about what the underlying cause is. And the things that we usually highlight are either there's no power, or the internet connection's down, or the Wi-Fi connection's down, and it's impossible to disambiguate any of those failure modes from the OSPP network. It just says go flip the breaker. But in our case, we can do that, and the way we do that is we route that data over the mesh network. We get reporting through an error system into our back end, and you can go in there and you can look at the last set of logs there and identify what the problem is. And so lots of additional functionality there to help you remotely diagnose, even if the charger's all the way across the country. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Raymond.
Well, thank you, Chris. And I can't say enough at how delightful our experience working with Fractal has been. They're very responsive. They're very committed to customer service. And guess what? My next guest, Rodney Miles, who introduced me to Fractal, the reason he introduced me to Fractal is he's such a strong advocate for ensuring customer satisfaction. Rodney has a lot of experience using other manufacturers' equipment, and he became, I'm going to call him a zealot. I hope he doesn't mind being called a zealot, but he's a zealot for ensuring reliability, uptime, and the ease that Fractal provides. So Rodney is the CEO and founder of Your Charging Solutions. And Rodney, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to try to get the slides right first, though. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Raymond. I really appreciate the introduction. And I'll take a zealot. I might have to look up to see what it is. But Fractal EV and Evoke Systems partnership has been game-changing for AM, PM EV. CIG Communities is a portfolio that I have been taking care of for the last few to several years, and they had a Gen 1 solution. It had grown, it had been needed to be replaced. So looking at the solutions that were out there, there was only one that made sense, and that was the pairing of Evoke and Fractal. The two use cases that you kind of can see in front of you, one of them is Aqua on the Levee. There's 14 chargers there. Their connectivity is SIM card. It's a first floor parking garage behind the gate. I am in Bradenton, Sarasota, Florida, and these chargers are in Kentucky. They were electrified by my contractor. He was able to walk away, and I activated a Fractal SIM, and I could see all 14 chargers. And I was able to see what networks they could see. So before I ever left my house in Florida to go there, which I didn't have to ultimately, but I did just to make sure that everything was right, I was able to commission one of them from my seat. That was revolutionary for me. I don't know of another charger on the market that can do that. And pairing it with the setup from Evoke and Fractal together, it truly was. Basically, you just terminate the wires and walk away in an instance like that. Aspire Kenwood, a little bit different. They're not run by SIM, they're run by Wi-Fi. Now there's 18 ports spread over 5 floors for public and resident parking, but it's an open garage. And they do multiple billing options. But those were Wi-Fi. So my contractor on the first floor of one charger entered in, as Chris said, the Wi-Fi credentials. You check a box from a touchscreen, share Wi-Fi credentials, and through that mesh network, it shared to all 18 chargers. They were all commissioned and online inside 20 minutes. And that's all of the chargers doing their self-health checks once they're connected to the network or connected to the internet. Time is money, and this saved me days. I have spent days with other solutions commissioning on the phone with providers. Not the same. It was unbelievable. And then the commissioning made simple. These 2 chargers that you can see the Oregon School Board are in Oregon, Salem, Oregon. These were shipped, pre-commissioned, electrified. The team called me from Oregon, and I basically just told them to look at the screen for a few minutes as it all booted up. And they asked if they had to do anything. And I said no. And it booted up. I could see them, and then Evoke could finish the commissioning on the back end to release the site for use. Easy. It doesn't get any easier. For the commissioning, and that goes across the board, whether you want to commission on Wi-Fi, SIM card, Fractal SIM, it's all easy. And Chris, I'm going to touch on a point that you made where some of this mesh network can reduce truck rolls. So reduce disruptions for site hosts. There is a site that was installed and there's 3 chargers there, 1 in front of the gate, 2 behind the gate. The 2 behind the gate could not see the Wi-Fi signal strong enough, but they could be activated by the Fractal SIM. Fractal SIMs were activated, brought the chargers back online, had the contractor move the access point. As you said, networking a lot of times is the issues. Moved the access point, you can then see your Wi-Fi signal strength from the charger, reconnected to the Wi-Fi, and your site host was never disrupted in charging. That's unheard of again. So to kind of piggyback off your point, reducing truck rolls, increasing profit margins, because every time I have to set foot on a site, it costs me or the company money. So higher profits for me, much, much better experiences for the customers, and all of it can be done remotely. So I just can't say enough in discussing these use cases that I've been involved in, and I look forward to answering questions from anybody who has them. Raymond, I'll toss it back to you.
Well, thank you, Rodney, and thank you, Chris. And I'll tell you this: Evoke has been in business 5 years, but my head of software development has been around for him and I have worked together for over 10 years. And when we first got a demonstration from Chris and someone on his staff in terms of the functionality and visibility that Fractal provides, he was kind of blown away. We work with that right now with about 35 chargers. And as Rodney said, we're not aware of another charger in the field, in particular in the L2 space. Clearly on the DC fast chargers, there's a lot more support and visibility from the major manufacturers. But in the level 2 space that where Fractal plays, we're not aware of another manufacturer that gives us the confidence that we could provide for such a high degree of uptime and reliability and hassle-free, really hassle-free, as Rodney said earlier. So one question that came in, Chris, is where are the labels? How do you put the QR codes in?
Well, you can put labels on if you'd like, but we don't recommend them because it's kind of a logistical hassle to get labels delivered to sites and then link those up. You know, those labels are hard coded, obviously, and then link them up in the software on the backside. So this charger was designed for no labels. So you can just load the QR code in through our portal. You can also set the charger ID and that sort of thing through our portal, and it'll show up on the charger screen. So the charger screen is quite flexible. You can display custom images and text, so everyone can be customized in that way. So there's really no need to apply labels. I would say there's only a small fraction of our customers who apply any labels to the chargers.
And one thing I'll just say that our experience is we don't like labels for the reasons that you mentioned, but it's actually the customizability of the screen in the level 2 space, which is actually fairly unique, so that we could put our support number on there, we could put our own logo on there. We don't have to. In other words, again, it's hassle-free is a good summation in terms of what Fractal provides. So
there's maybe I could just add
on.
one other thing, Raymond. There's one other reason that labels are not a great idea. We haven't seen too much of it in North America, but in Europe, this is an increasing problem, which is people will stick their own QR codes with a payment link on it over these chargers, and it's effectively a form of fraud. And so when a driver shows up, they're, instead of scanning the Evoke QR code, they're scanning some fraudster's QR code, and they're paying to some other company.
You know, I'd never heard of that. That's an interesting way to make money. So Ronnie, a question for you. How do you get someone? Suppose you have someone flip a breaker. You need someone to flip a breaker, which is a fairly common. It's like rebooting a PC. It's a fairly common thing that you need to be able to do to bring your charger back online.
Yes, it is. It's extremely common and funny. I fielded a couple of these questions just yesterday of people who don't have fractals. So when I have a charger that's a fractal, and historically speaking, if it loses connectivity or with your OCPP server, at that point, the only solution is flipping a breaker. But with a fractal, as Chris had mentioned, I can log into the charger and I can log into that specific charger from another charger that's on site through that mesh network. And then I can push that reboot command. That charger will then do a self reboot. And as we know, a vast majority of the time come back online. As Chris had mentioned, these logs that you can see that it was a brownout. And sometimes that will take a charger offline. And it's commonplace. Other solutions, you have to call a site host and they have to flip a breaker and or disconnect power of some sort and reboot that charger. Fractal solves that remotely. Again, less truck rolls, less money, happier customers.
Great. Well, thank you. I've got another question where someone's asking for a quick walkthrough on basically how does the driver initiate a charger system and pay. What I'd like to do, Richard, is take this offline because I'm not set up to really show them. We do it really through a phone app. Now we could also do Fractal is also coming up with tap to pay, where you just tap your credit card to the machine, and that product I think will be out first quarter next year. But right now it would be to scan a QR code, and Evoke does support roaming, which would mean if someone has a charge point or another app that supports roaming, they could use their existing app and scan the QR code. But I can show you that kind of offline if you're interested. So I'll reach out to you after the webinar because I'm just not really set up to do that on this call.
I could share just a little bit of how some of mine are set up. You know, with Richard, with some of the communities that I use, they want to use RFIDs. And so Evoke is set up to accept RFID payments and the Fractal as well. So depending on the situation, depending on the scale and scope, you can choose your own RFIDs as long as they're compatible. They can be sent and can be programmed, or you could do regular QR code. You know, depending on signal availability. I see you said like in a garage environment. I don't know if you're thinking restricted signal, stuff like that. So, but Evoke and Fractal accept almost every way that you can start. Tap to pays coming. I don't know exactly when from Chris, but kind of kick that to his court if he wants to send that.
You want to talk about your upcoming tap to pay, Chris?
So in Q1, we are going to be launching effectively a credit card reader inside the charger. So So yeah, so the user would just walk up to it, and it's effectively a gas pump experience. Tap your credit card and charge your vehicle.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Chris, because I don't remember the answer, but are you guys going to support 15118 as well in the near
Yes,
term?
yes, 100%. Yeah, we don't have
Okay.
a definitive timeline for all of those features that are embedded inside there, but yeah, this year for sure, or 2026 for sure.
Great. Okay. And for those who don't know, 15118, it's still a lot of the car manufacturers don't yet support 15118. But the idea would be is you plug your connector into the charger, and the car identifies itself. So you don't need tap to pay. You don't need an app. You basically, and that's really where we see the industry moving. Is we're seeing that certainly in California on tap to pay, and I think that plug and charge is will naturally follow on after that. So other questions from the audience? So I don't have any other questions. We're scheduled to go for till 11:30. Is that correct?
Richard, my chargers are in a
Richard.
sub-level, so customers don't have direct access to the chargers.
So I'm a little bit unclear when you say so. We have probably 2,500 chargers in New York City, and so we've got a lot of ones in older buildings that are pretty sub-level. But are you talking about where they have valet parking? I'm a little bit confused by the question when you say the customers don't have direct access to the chargers. If it is with valet parking, we support APIs that we can integrate in with something like Valet Manager, which is a parking garage operator application. Or what we do is we'll oftentimes provide the valets with RFIDs and provide the, anyway, one thing we've learned in New York City is the parking garage operators are king. And so we've done it every way that you could think of in regards to matching the charging activity to this. Some will do a flat fee. Some of the valets will have both an RFID card and an RFID fob. So if they're a tenant in the building and they get one rate, they use the fob. And then if they're what they call a transient, in other words, someone parking, they'll use the card. I mean, depending on the garage operator, we just say yes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm assuming that you're talking about valet parking, which we have a lot of experience with. Oh, well, so the answer is yes. Flat rate parking is very common. We do have APIs, and we have worked with Valet Manager, but we're willing to work with any parking garage management system you have. We're willing to provide a set of APIs where it could be integrated in with the Valet parking system, and that would be the ideal way to do it. But we, other than the work we've done with Valet Manager, we haven't had another taker among parking garage software providers.
You should use the Fractal EVs because you can see a lot more about what's going on with the chargers.
Well, what he's wanting to do is he's wanting to match the driver. We had one
Right.
building, I don't know if they ever did it. What they were going to do for the tenants is we have an RFID that's a fob, and because the tenants, the parking garage operators, have the keys for all of those, the keys to the car for all the tenants, they were going to put it on individual fobs on each one of the cars for the tenants. So again, there's just so many different ways. And I don't know if they've ever implemented that, but there are so many different ways that it could be implemented. And there, it's really quite frankly a discussion between the parking garage. I was surprised to learn that the parking garage operator has a lot more say in how it should be done than the building owner or the co-op board. So what we do is we always defer to the people in charge. Hopefully that answers your question, Richard. So do we have any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for your time, and certainly reach out to me or to Rodney or to Chris if you do have additional questions or if you would like to see a demo. And thank you all. Rodney or Chris, any closing thoughts?
I would say none for me, but I really appreciate you taking the opportunity to listen to us speak about on this topic.
And I just
Also,
want to thank you. I want to thank you both, Rodney and Chris. It's really a pleasure to work with both of you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of the success stories that AM/PM has had with Evoke and with Fractal, and many more to come in 2026.
Thank you,
Again,
folks.
thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.